Hey, good morning. How are you? This is Joseph Patterson again from UIC Jamaica. And this morning I just want to talk to you about this idea of a minimum wage and a livable wage. They're a trick, okay? No government should be setting for you a minimum wage or a livable wage. Now, I know this is not usual for you to hear from a politician because politicians know that the idea of a minimum wage is a very catchy one. It's a very easy one to use to trick people, to buy votes. Because at the end of the day, the minimum wage is really nothing. It is really a gimmick. In the end, if you live your life wanting to earn a higher minimum wage, it's going to keep you down. It's going to keep you mentally depressed because you're thinking that somebody out there is responsible for how much you earn. Nobody, no government, not your parents, not your teachers, not the police officers, the nurses, the doctors, not even your employer is responsible for how much you are paid. You are responsible for how much you are paid. It's all about how much you are prepared to learn and do in order to earn your maximum potential. The more value you're able to add in the world is the more you're going to earn. So the longer you keep waiting on and depending on and trusting in a government to set your wages for you, is the longer you're going to remain poor or financially insecure. So don't be fooled by the trick. By the way, no matter how much they give you in minimum wage increases, you'll never have enough because they're never going to give you more than the rise in inflation. And if they do that, then they're going to actually destroy the economy, right? So what they're doing is simply topping you up just enough to keep you voting for them while they're doing things that are undermining your economy, such as inflating away your purchasing power. You should be more concerned about inflation and what is the true cause of inflation and what government should do about it. In fact, they're the ones creating it. There are two types of inflation: artificial inflation and natural inflation. Natural inflation is what occurs in any market if you have a mismatch in demand and supply. So for example, in a market where, let's say you have a pumpkin production, if for whatever reason there's a pestilence or a natural disaster, a storm or something that blows away or damages the pumpkin crop. And so you have a small amount of pumpkin coming into the market this year. But the demand for pumpkin remain what it was the year before. Let's say there's a demand for 1 million pumpkins. But because of some natural disaster, nothing that the government could have controlled, nothing that any particular person could have controlled, it just happened. So now you have, instead of 1 million pumpkins in the market, to meet the million demands, you have only 250,000 pumpkin. Clearly, the price of pumpkin is going to go up because of that natural inflation. That's fine. That's a part of life, and we have to live with that. But then there's artificial inflation created when government makes bad decisions that either stifles production or increases the money supply beyond what it should have been increased, or borrowing new money and putting into the market without any production to back it up, then you're going to have inflation. Now, Jamaica is a heavily import-dependent country. So if government makes Jamaica a heavily import-dependent country, it means that other countries' inflation will quickly become our inflation because our government has not made us a productive country. Their laws and policies stifles our productive capacity and makes us weak and makes us less productive and make us more dependent on imports. And because of that, we will suffer from all kinds of inflation, imported inflation or dilution inflation caused by the government borrowing money, putting it into the economy, but we don't have production to back it up. So that simply dilutes the value of our dollar. Similarly, if you have a case where we are importing a lot, but we're not earning enough foreign currencies to pay for it, you're going to have devaluation, which manifests itself in the form of inflation. For example, right now, over the last several years, our remittances, what we get by just sitting down here in Jamaica and begging our family and friends overseas to send us money, that money that's a part of the inflationary makeup. Now that is dropping because less and less people overseas are having the means to just give us some. So that's also changing our mix. But the bottom line is this: if you are waiting on government to give you a high wage, you are in a mindset which will keep you poor and financially insecure. We have to get out of that mindset so they can't trick us with it anymore. So don't sit there waiting for this government or the one to come to give you a higher minimum wage. In fact, minimum wage has been destroying Jamaica for years in a very simple way. When you set a minimum wage, that means by law you cannot pay anybody below that except you're doing it illegally on the table. Now, it also sets up the minds of the people that that is what they should earn. Now, this creates two problems. One, the minimum wage eliminates from the marketplace all those who are not valuable enough to the marketplace at that price. So those people get to sit in a yard, them not earn nothing, and they become permanently unemployable. Because if they leave school at say 16, 17, 18, and nobody is willing to employ them at the minimum price that is set, they're going to stay home forever. So when they just leave school, they might know a little something. In 1 year, they know a little less. In 2 years, they know even less. In 5 years, they're now fully dunce. They were dunce already when they left school, but now they're even more dunce because they've been out of the marketplace. They then learn different skills: stealing, impregnating as many girls as possible on the block. They become useless to the productive market space and can only work well in the scamming and thieving and murderous marketplace, which is not one you want them to be in. But that's what minimum wage creates. Now, if you had no minimum wage, that mindset would not be there. And people would learn that they take a job or look a job at whatever price fits their competencies. Now you say, wait a minute, employers are going to mistreat them. Employers are going to pay them low. No, the employers are like you and me. They also have to face the market. Any employer who is foolish enough to not pay his employees well will lose his best employees to another competitor who is willing to pay them. So if you set up a true free market, a real free market of wages, and stop having government play with our minds and play with our market, and allow the market to operate fully and freely, what would happen? Those of you who are now getting minimum wage but are valued much more than that, will be able to rise up quickly because the market cap wouldn't be there. The artificial structures that prevent you from earning and giving employers a free ride would be gone. And the minds of the people now would be changed. And people would be free, very, very free, to choose who they want to work for and at what price. Now, that's already happening above the minimum wage. But this minimum wage creates an artificial starting point for negotiation, which eliminates the lowest producers among us and pushes them out of the market and makes them permanently unemployable. And as that number builds, the country is drawn down by it. Now, those who could have been earning more in a truly open and free market gets fed up. And as soon as they can, they leave the country. So what you have is a reduction in the supply of high quality workers and an increase in the supply of low quality workers, which then makes it very difficult for us to have a highly productive economy, which results in us having the kind of economy we have. So believe it or not, your government's minimum wage policies over the last several decades have been creating the underproductive situation we have in Jamaica. It's about how does that affect bigger countries? The same apply, except that those bigger countries got rich from other means before, and that wealth allows them to play games with minimum wage in a way that doesn't devalues them as fast as it does in a country like Jamaica. So if you know what's good for you and good for all of us, we must oppose this idea of a minimum wage or a livable wage and go to a fully free and fair market economy for labor. That's going to be better for Jamaica.